أهلا بكم. النهاردة الدرس رقم 57 من دروس تعلم اللغة الإنجليزية. وهنتكلم عن إزاي أستخدم كونكتور لعمل تسلسل في الأحداث أو تسلسل في الجمل. إزاي أقول أولا ثانيا. Okay. Hello and welcome. Today is lesson 57 and I am going to talk about how to use connectors to describe ideas in a sequential manner. So let's start. زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا connectors or conjunctions. عندنا sequence تسلسل أو تتابع is written in Arabic. Okay. sequence معناه تسلسل أو تتابع. زي ما احنا شايفين these connectors allow us to describe ideas in a sequential and organized manner. Okay, in a sequential and organized manner. Connector example: at first sight, first of all, in the first place, to start with, in the second place, second or secondly. Okay, they are the same, الاتنين زي بعض. Finally, lastly, and finally, in conclusion. In conclusion. This is the first one, at first sight. طبعا دول الاكزامبلز او السنتنس دي الاكزامبلز على الرابط. At first sight, I thought she was pretty. At first sight, comma, I thought she was pretty. He is too cautious to fall in love with you at first sight. It was love at first sight. Don't judge men or things at first sight. At first sight, the house appeared to be empty than it really is. They fell in love with each other at first sight. Okay. The next connector, first. Okay, first. First, comma, I glanced at her physical appearance. If you get home first, comma, can you put the kettle on? First, I want to thank my parents. The company was still very small when I first joined. First of all, first of all. First of all, I want to say I also care about the feelings of others. First of all, we want to buy our own home. Happiness lies, first of all, in health. Happiness lies, comma, first of all, comma, in health. He first of all worked as a machine operator. I have made a commitment, first of all, to myself. Okay, next one, in the first place. In the first place, I find it hard to approach anybody. In the first place, comma, we feel intoxicated. Okay? Communicative skills were excluded in the first place. In the first place, a comparative trail is demonstrated because it was never painted in the first place. Okay, next one. To start with, comma, I asked her to dance. To start with, you need to pick up your clothes. I'll have melon to start with. We only knew 2 people in London to start with, but we soon made friends. Well, maybe it would be easier to start with a smaller problem. In the second place, comma, we talked about our interests. In the second place, it was too springy. In the second place, socialism will not permit it. Okay. In the second place, socialism will not permit it. In the first place, New York is very cold in the winter. And in the second place, I don't want to move anyway. Okay. In the first place, New York is very cold in the winter. And in the second place, I don't want to move anyway. Second or secondly, okay, they are the same. To say second or secondly. Okay, الاثنين زي بعض. تقول second or secondly. Secondly, comma, I asked if she had a boyfriend. First, it's expensive. And the second, it's too slow. Secondly, such studies rarely used any matched control groups. Secondly, cigarette smoking might produce a local immunological defect. Okay, next one. Finally, I asked for her number. They finally found the cat up on the roof. After drilling for several weeks, they finally struck oil. She finally emerged from her room at noon. Agreement was finally reached after very lengthy discussions. Lastly, I drove her to her place. Lastly, I would like to ask about your future plans. They wash their hands, arms, and faces, and lastly, they wash their feet. Lastly, we are going to visit Athens and fly home from there. And finally, comma, I returned home feeling quite happy. And finally, comma, I asked her for her phone number. And finally, she finally emerged from her room at noon. And finally, I answered all the questions. In conclusion, comma, I hope the relationship goes well. In conclusion, I would like to say how much I have enjoyed myself today. In conclusion, walking is a cheap, safe, enjoyable, and readily available form of exercise. In conclusion, I would like to thank you all for your hard work. In conclusion, I submit that the proposal will not work without some major changes. This is all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I always wish you all the best. Goodbye.